And welcome back to this week's episode of Master Your Mindset. On this week's episode, we have the amazing Claudia, who I am so excited to have on with me. Claudia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This is my first ever podcast.
Oh my God, this is your debut.
Yeah, I know.
I have followed you on Instagram we were talking about this, was it like 4 years now? I feel
I
like
reckon
I've
so.
had you there, and I'm really selective about who I hear purely because the people I bring on, I want them to have a story to share, which is going to help and inspire other people. And I really feel like you do. So I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to hand the mic over to you so you can share everything you've been through, because it's been a lot.
It has been a lot. I've had a lot of ups and downs. It's been a long journey, but yeah, I feel like to where my mindset is now, it's just crazy. Like it honestly changed my life, and my perspective that I have now on everything and how I show up is completely transformed. I mean, it never used to be like that. I used to be like almost stuck in a negative cycle, and that was back in 2022. I was depressed. Like I did get diagnosed with depression, and I did have therapy for it, but it was kind of more than that. It was like my overall mindset, and it was just what I was feeding myself, like the language that I spoke to myself, and I was just like stuck in a victim mentality for sure. And I just felt so stuck in this like bubble. I just didn't know how to get out.
What do you think? Was there any like traumas or like pinnacle moments back in 2020 that highlighted or like brought on that depression, do you think?
I wouldn't say so. I think I wasn't sure what I wanted to do kind of like career wise. I was like stuck in a job that I wasn't happy with. So I think it was a few different contributing factors like that. I was comparing myself to others who were more successful and who had their own businesses. So it was kind of a lot of comparison. It was like not feeling satisfied in my kind of day-to-day routine and job. It wasn't like one particular moment. I've just kind of, the more I let it progress and the more I just continued to like feel like this and be in this cycle, the worse that it actually got, until I kind of hit like a breaking point and I just kind of had like a bit of a breakdown, and I was like, okay, I actually need to like take action myself, because I know that life isn't meant to be like this. I'm not meant to feel like this. Like I deserve so much more. So
And
that's when I took action.
having that self-awareness as well, to know like I don't want to feel like this anymore, and there's things that I can do to help myself not feel like this. That's a really powerful place to be in. And for those people that know that something in their life isn't quite right, but they know that there's more, but they don't know how to get there, like that, also that transition period, that's tough. That's really, really
Yeah.
tough. And what advice would you give to somebody who might be feeling the same way that you did?
Gosh, I would say yes, obviously self-awareness is the first step. It's the first step in everything. So if you're initially feeling some kind of way, then definitely journaling. It's such an amazing mindfulness practice to kind of really have like a mental release, get all your thoughts out on paper. And so that's part of the self-awareness process. But I would then say to talk to someone you love, you feel comfortable with, whether that's a best friend, partner, your parents, anyone you feel comfortable with, and just be open and honest. And yeah, you can be vulnerable in a situation, but that's like such a key part, and that's where you've got to push through. So just speak to someone about how you're feeling and kind of see what advice they say. But ultimately I would say, well, it depends, because obviously I had depression, so then that's why I started with therapists before I then took on a mindset coach and did mindset work. But it depends kind of what you're struggling with. But if it is kind of something similar to what I had, then obviously look to speak to a therapist, because they really, really help you. But if it's just kind of internal barriers and you want to achieve your goals and things like that, then invest in a mindset coach 100%, because that will change your life. And I'm not just saying that to promote our services, but it's like, I think everyone should have a mindset coach. Honestly, I just think anything comes up, you don't know what's going to come up in life. One day you can be in such a strong mindset, but then something can happen that's out of your control and it kind of knocks you back, and having someone to really guide you through that process is just transformational.
It's so true. And life is just lifing, isn't it? Like you have no idea what's around the
Yeah.
corner. And you can be the strongest, most happiest person, but all it would take is that one thing to completely break you. But the one thing that you are guaranteed throughout the rest of your life is that you're always going to have your mind, and your mind is
Mm,
going to determine the way that you view certain situations, or actually every
yeah.
situation. And if you've got a strong mind, you'll be able to face anything that life throws at you.
Yeah, definitely. That's so true. Having that growth mindset sets you apart from others. But it's just, yeah. So if things do happen, like you said, you face challenges, obstacles, because there's ups and downs, ebbs and flows. Like that's just life. But it's how you handle it with the mindset that you have, for sure. And I've definitely had my fair share of challenges, like so far this year.
So let's talk about those challenges, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because you haven't had the easiest ride, but look at you, you're
Mm.
here, you're alive, you're smiling, and there will be people listening to this podcast today who are going through challenging times themselves, maybe even to the
Mm.
point that they can relate to the things that you've been through. So I would love if you could share your story and explain a little bit about what you've been through.
Yeah, of course. So I think I went through a breakup like beginning of this year. It was around February actually after my birthday. So that kind of happened quite unexpectedly. But and then a month after that, I then got made redundant from a job that I hadn't even been there 2 years, but like that was also very unexpected. And actually, it wasn't actually my boss who made me redundant. It actually went over her. So she didn't even know I got made redundant until it happened. And yeah, so if it was up to her, then obviously that would have never have happened. But yeah, that all happened really fast paced as well. It was quite sudden and it was definitely an uncertain time and it was hard to navigate. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. I spoke to a girl yesterday and she said, look, my company's going through redundancy at the moment. And I feel like so many companies are struggling out there. But I honestly think that it's how you deal with that and how you look at it. To begin with, I was like, oh my God, like, why is this happening to me? Like, what have I done to deserve this? Like, all these kind of thoughts. But then I was like, actually, remind myself, like, everything happens for a reason. And this is just like kind of redirecting me into something better. And that was, well, I then went on to launch my own kind of coaching business. So that's why it happened now. But obviously, in the moment, it's hard. You get caught up in the moment and sucked in. It's sometimes hard to see the bigger picture. But I think really kind of taking a step back, obviously allowing yourself to feel all the feelings because that is so important. You don't want to build it up and keep them kind of held in. But yeah, feel all the feelings, take a step back and just kind of think about the bigger picture and try to think about the positives. That's what I would really recommend if anyone's going through that at the moment.
You're so right. And being in that moment, like I can think about 5 pinnacle moments in my life where I've really thought life was falling apart and I couldn't see a way out of it. But
Mm,
once you're Claudia, in the sense that once you've built your mind to a certain point, it becomes unshakable and you're literally like, I could take on anything. Like the worst, the house could cave in on me right now and I'd still be like, I'm alive. And they
yeah.
do say that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you deal with it. So
Mm,
even if you have the shittest situation happen to you, which I'm going to be completely honest, I've lost both my parents. At this
gosh.
point, I think, like, what more could go wrong? Like, anything underneath that, like, that is people's worst nightmares. And that's in my reality. So I think,
Yeah.
like, even if my house was to cave in and I made it out alive, I'd be like, it's only a house. You can build that again. Like, things
Yeah.
really get put into perspective when you go through traumatic situations, just like you've been made redundant and you had a breakup all in the space of like a month.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, literally.
that's a really small time frame to go through 2 really big life changes. One day you were in a job which you enjoyed and you had a relationship with someone you saw a future with, and then in a blink of an eye it's all taken away. But unfortunately that's just what life is, and this is why it's so
Mm,
important to work on your mindset, because you absolutely never know what's around the corner, and you want to be in a
yeah.
position to be like, it's okay if that X, Y, and Z happens to me, because I'm at a place now where I can take anything on.
Mm, so true. And I think when things like this happen in life, I think it's so easy to fixate on wanting that control, because one of the most common desires that we have as humans is wanting that control. So when things like this happen and it's outside of our control, it just kind of, it kind of makes us react in a certain kind of way. But we just need to shift that focus into, okay, this has happened, it's outside of my control, but I can then control how I feel and how I respond and show up now in alignment with the person that I want to become. So I think it's even having that awareness about what you can control and can't control is also huge, and is also such a big part of having a growth mindset.
Do you think there was a pinnacle moment from everything you've been through to where you are now where you thought, I need to switch up my mindset, I need to think in a different way? Or do you think that the mindset changes just kind of happened naturally for you?
So back in 2022, I think I had that kind of pinnacle moment where I got so low and so to like rock bottom. I was like, okay, like just need to change everything. So probably then, but then since that journey and since I kind of took action, had therapy, had mindset coaching, and also just did so much self-development work, like read books and podcasts and things, I think it was then like a gradual process into that point.
Anyone listening to this podcast episode who may have only just found self-development, personal development, what advice would you give to them if they are, for example, going through something like you, who maybe they've just gone through a breakup with the person that they saw a whole future with, or maybe they've been made redundant like you did, and they're so new to this world, none of their friends or family understand it, and they just feel a bit sheltered, like they feel a bit like they can't talk to anyone. What other tips and tricks could you give them in order for them to get through whatever they're going through?
Think honestly, it's the healthy habits. It's the habits you do every day that will keep you going and that will help you keep feeling your best, your friends, but also make sure you're spending time with yourself. Even take yourself out on dates, like solo dates. I never kind of really explored solo dates until this year, but I wish I'd done it sooner because it's a
Solo
game
date.
changer.
Amazing, amazing. Even if it's just
Yeah.
a coffee shop or taking yourself
Yeah.
out for breakfast, like there's such a taboo about sitting alone at a table and eating. Like if you go to a restaurant, you go table for one, you will be in the back corner table. Like it happens. You see it all the time, especially
Yeah.
with old people. And I don't know why, but there's something about if I see an old man in like a coffee shop or like in a restaurant, my heart just sinks. And
I
it's just,
know.
why? Like, why do we feel that way? Like, why is it so sad for someone to go and sit on their own? Like, good for that person. They're taking themselves out. They're doing something that they want to do. Maybe their friends aren't around. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they have other
Mm.
plans. Good for you going out there and just doing whatever you want to do. We literally get one life. Why are you not going to do the things you want to do? Because there's no one else that wants to do them with you.
I know, it's so empowering to even just do that and, to get your book out or just to have a look around or do some work or just kind of be present in the moment. I think we've obviously grown up in a society where, I don't know, like people feel the need to always be with someone and people feel the need to kind of have someone there to make them feel good and to make them happy. But that's not the case. Like you need to love yourself first and fill your own cup up first. And spending time with yourself, by yourself, in whatever situation that is the best kind of way to learn yourself and to kind of honor that.
I'm a firm believer as well. And let me know what your thoughts are on this, Claudia. That the moment that you show up for yourself and you love yourself wholeheartedly, none of this like, oh, I love myself, but not really feeling it internally, you will attract the best partner, the best friends, the best job, the best business. Like all these things will be attracted to you because you are showing up 100% as the person you are meant to be. And I've got some friends who they've just broken up and their immediate reaction is to go out and go and find another partner. And worst thing you can do. I think
Yeah, it
when you're
is.
going through something like that, the best thing you can do is work on yourself, because the next person you're going to be with, hopefully, is going to be the person you're going to be with forever. And when you show up as your highest, authentic, most lovable self, you're going to attract just the same in another person. If you're like down here, not feeling yourself, feeling shit, saying bad things to yourself, you're only going to be attracting somebody at this level. Whereas if you take
Yeah.
yourself up here, the person you attract is going to be up here too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. You know, like when you have like high vibration and you're operating on a high frequency, you're only going to attract things into your life, people and events that are on that same level. So I'm a huge believer in, yeah, everything you've just said. Completely agree with that.
And I think it overlaps into every area of your life, not just romantic relationships, but like friendships as well. Like there's been
Mm,
friends that I don't talk to because as soon as you see them, you might have this as well, they're like mood hoovers. And the
yeah.
energy, like I think when you go into the personal development space, like obviously we have businesses and we're mindset coaches and everything, energy is everything in that area of life. That if
Mm.
you're around negative vibes, like it physically affects me. Like I feel like somebody's like squashed me down. And you like as soon as you go into those environments, you can actually feel it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had to let a few friendships go last year where they just weren't serving me anymore. And that's so okay because that's all part of growing and, you know, growing into the person you want to become. Like those sometimes those friendships don't align with the new version of you, and that's totally fine. And I think you don't, it's hard to let friendships go. I think as hard as it is maybe to let romantic relationships go because the bond can be just as much, but yeah, I would say energy is everything, like you've said. You know, when you're spending time with someone that maybe drains your energy, you're gonna get dragged down to that low vibrational state, I think. And I mean, having like this year, obviously after those kind of incidents happened, I attracted a friendship and like we're like so close now and like after I see her, like I'm so inspired and I feel so happy and you just feel so like uplifted and like those are the kind of friendships that you want in your life. So you just need to like, as long as you're working on like your inner self and you're making sure that you're happy from within and that you're, embracing and living as your most authentic self, then you're going to naturally attract those friendships into your life.
I completely agree. And anyone who's listening to this who feels like they're outgrowing a social group or maybe even outgrowing a relationship, I've been there. And yes, it is really hard, but you are better to grow on your own than to not allow yourself to grow because you want to be around other people.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
So, obviously, with growth comes a lot of overwhelming feelings. Sometimes you
Mm,
feel like there's a bit of imposter syndrome. Like, should I be growing at this rate when nobody else is around me? Should
mm.
I be allowing myself, especially if when you're growing a business on social media, there's a lot of competition out there. And sometimes you do have to take a deep breath and say, like, I am capable of this. I can do this. I was made to do this. I've got knowledge that I want to share with other people. Like, have you ever experienced any sort of overwhelming feelings? And if you have, how have you got through them?
Yeah, funny you should say that because actually this week I kind of turned it around, but the few weeks before that I felt so overwhelmed. Overwhelmed was running the show. I was just like neglecting all kind of like the healthy habits, my morning routine, and I just couldn't pull myself out for a while. Again, like you said, it can be really hard when you're kind of you've got kind of building a business on social media and there is a lot of competition out there and it's so easy to compare yourself to others. I was comparing myself to other mindset coaches who like got a bigger following than me or who've got like 40 clients or something, but like I have to remind myself that I've only just started and obviously I'm going to learn and grow as I progress. But yeah, it was hard. Did definitely have imposter syndrome, and I think maybe like a fear of failing as well. But I think I've actually worked through those internal barriers with my mindset coach, so I feel a lot better now. I'm in a better position about it. But yeah, I think feeling overwhelmed. It's not just like being like a mindset coach, having your own business. Anyone can feel overwhelmed, and it's such like I think it's so natural and it's just kind of even just acknowledging, okay, right, this is how I'm feeling, this is the state that I'm in, but I can choose a different state to be in. Okay, so what state? When I say state, obviously it's a mood. So, I want to
Not the
feel a
mental
little bit
state.
more, pardon?
Not
No, 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 no. It's a bit of a mindset kind of terminology being in a state, isn't it?
yeah.
But yeah, so it's just kind of like choosing how you want to feel instead and kind of definitely doing the things that makes you feel a lot calmer and good within. But yeah, for me, like the last few weeks, I just kind of neglected my morning routine and the habits, even though doing those actually kind of reduces stress and anxiety. And I think it's just so important to kind of keep up with your routine when you're feeling this kind of way, because there'll be phases of your life where you feel certain moods and things like that, but it's just kind of how you kind of go through it and come out the other side.
I think it's a kind of self-sabotage, isn't it? Like we all do it. There's certain things
Yeah.
which we know are not going to help us, like going out and binge drinking or going and getting a huge McDonald's. But we do these things because they're kind of a comfort blanket. They're what we know when we're not feeling our best to try and cheer us up. In the short term, great. Long term, if you continue to do those habits, they're going to make you feel even shitter. So it's really good to acknowledge that there's certain habits which you do and which anyone can do. For example, like making your bed every morning, brushing your teeth, jumping in the
Mm,
shower, doing an hour of journaling. Actually, that's really unrealistic. 10 minutes of journaling, reading a book, going for a walk, like all these little habits actually stack up. And if anyone is looking for a book that goes into this, Atomic Habits is incredible.
love
It
it.
talks about habit stacking and how you can just start small and then build up your habits over time. And if you're new to this space, or even if you're on a personal development journey right now and you're listening to this podcast, please go and read that book, because that, I swear, is the book that changed my life, and I've recommended it to so many of my clients. It's incredible. To like build a healthy routine in the morning, but you don't have enough time necessarily. There is always time that can be made. So
Mm,
yeah, definitely go and read that book. And going back to self-sabotage, I think we do it in every area. Like I know people who have been in relationships and they've been healthy relationships, but because of previous relationships, they've tried to out their partner for cheating or like looked through their phone, and there's just no need for that stuff. But our brains naturally wire us to what we're comfortable with and what we're familiar with, so we will always go back, which is why it's so important to make sure that the habits that we do every day are consistent, so that what if we go back to will be a healthy habit.
yeah, definitely, 100%. And well, as well as me kind of neglecting my kind of healthy habits that I know like make me feel good, I then started some bad habits. Well, I guess that's kind of a bit of the process of feeling overwhelmed. So, I would set myself unrealistic to-do lists. I would just work through my breaks. So I wouldn't have any breaks. I would just be like, right, I just need to keep working until all of these tasks are ticked off. But yeah, it's just kind of really trying to be aware of those unhelpful habits. I don't like to say good and bad habits, because
Yeah.
sometimes the unhelpful habits do have good intentions. But yeah, it's just kind of being aware and really trying to make that change.
And I do think as well, sometimes people have to experience that themselves. Like you could have listened to a podcast which explained about healthy and unhealthy habits, but until
Mm,
you've got to a point of you physically exploring that, you probably wouldn't get on board. Like the way that people listen to this podcast, if they've been through a really hard time and they've done unhealthy habits in their daily routine, to not having to be in that state, I think people take it on board really differently, because now you're so aware. You're so aware that there's certain things like working through your breaks and not giving yourself a chance to relax that is actually unproductive, even though you think it's productive because you're working so hard. Long term, it's unproductive because the work you're creating isn't going to be as good as if you were going to give yourself a break.
yeah, definitely. I feel like also with society, we've got a lot of pressure on us to always like be achieving and always being like productive, so called, but actually rest is productive. And I think definitely like a lot of like wellness accounts that I follow on social media are kind of like pushing this out, that rest, like being productive is actually resting and actually taking care of yourself, as opposed to just working all the time, working on a side project, having a 9 to 5 job, trying to achieve everything in the world, because that's just going to lead to burnout. And I've definitely been burnt out before. So when I get into this overwhelmed state, I'm like, oh gosh, this is like a big signal where you really need to like kind of take action and kind of get rid of this kind of feeling. Otherwise, you're just going to be burnt out again. But yeah, I think going back to kind of being productive, I definitely feel like we've definitely grown up in a society where being productive looks like doing so much work all the time, and that's just not healthy. And that's, yeah,
The
for our
hustle
mindset as well.
culture, hustle culture
Yeah,
is it is gradually, very gradually getting better. But I know
yeah,
when I first went on Instagram, there was a lot, like everybody wanted to be a boss bitch, everybody wanted to own their own business, and there is still definitely that side of Instagram and social media, but there's also now this new side where it's rest, go on holiday, enjoy your time. Making money isn't everything, how you spend your time is. And I think that side, that is the really healthy side for anybody who's young, who thinks like the hustle culture is incredible and they need to do this and they need to constantly be working. If you're going to do that, let this be your warning that you will burn out. And burnout does not look fun. You're not the first person who's come on the podcast and said that they've had burnout. I work with a lot of clients, and you too probably, who have experienced that. Not only the mental side of burnout, but the physical, like the way burnout portrays in your body in its physical state is not good at all. So if you feel like you're working every hour of the day to achieve these goals, then please let this be your sign to just relax a little bit, give yourself a break, go on holiday. These things are not unproductive, they're very productive in order for you to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. And you can definitely have both. Like when you look after yourself on all levels and you rest more, you know, it's going to affect how you show up. You're going to show up actually in a way with more focus and more productivity. So I think they go hand in hand, but definitely take this advice and rest more for sure.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Have you got any more tips on any of the topics that we've shared today for somebody who might actually be experiencing burnout right now, or somebody who's just been made redundant and they might be listening to this podcast? And I know if I was listening to this, I would say, well, what do I do next? Like, the podcast is now finished. What do I do now?
Okay, so just tips for someone who's currently going through redundancy. I would say you want to have your options open. So there's no harm in looking for other jobs out there. Just kind of think of it as like a backup plan. I think that will help you feel a little bit more safe and secure, and also know that there are so many jobs out there. There's an endless supply, and there's going to be so many opportunities. You know, this has happened to you for a reason, so it's like kind of pushing you in a different direction. And that's going to be so much better, and you won't realize this now, but when it comes to it in the future, you will look back on this event and you'll be like, wow, okay, this did happen for a reason. I feel so much happier now. So I think just be a bit proactive with it. So I definitely like just have a look at what other jobs are out there. You know, if you're kind of in a job at the moment where you're not 100% enjoying it, then this is your time to like, okay, maybe I could try something new. So kind of see it as a new light and get fun and get creative with it. Just kind of just kind of brain dump. Okay, like what do I love about my job? What do I don't? Just kind of get clear on that. If it's a job you still love, then go for it. Apply for the same role in a different company. But yeah, if it's a job that you're not really satisfied with, then use it to kind of get a new job in a different industry and avenue. And I think that's like a great starting point.
Thank you so much for this episode, Claudia. You've been incredible. You've got so much knowledge, which I know is going to help so many of the listeners. If the listeners want to find you on socials, how can they find you?
Just on Instagram at Claudia Button, but the O is actually a 0. It's the same on TikTok as well.
Amazing.
But thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. In the show notes below. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in today. See you next week.